Hey everyone, I'm Alex.
And I'm Jack.
And today we're going to be ranking the bosses of Mario and Luigi Partners in Time from worst to best. As with many second games in a franchise, Partners in Time is generally considered a bit of an unusual entry, which is a reputation aided by things like the departure from the series' staple Bros attack system and the presence of 4 playable characters. Whether this was for better or for worse depends heavily on who you ask, but all we're concerned with today is the bosses.
Just a heads up, as I'm sure you've noticed, the gameplay is actually zoomed in and thus limited to the bottom screen here. We had to record the game on the Wii U Virtual Console port since it's almost impossible to record games on the DSi family of systems, so for visual's sake we're only going to show the bottom screen with occasional references to the top one. This is like our 35th video, so you know the drill. Let's get into the ranking.
I griped about the tutorial option being evil in Superstar Saga, but Partners in Time decided to go one further, literally, by making Toadsworth ask you a second time because he hates you and doesn't want you to have fun. I was on my guard and declined both offers, but I have vivid memories of being stuck in a dialogue loop with him as a kid and wanting to stomp him more than Baby Bowser. Oh, yeah, Baby Bowser. He shoots fireballs you jump over. It's like most tutorial bosses, but worse because you have to play as boring-ass Baby Mario, which is one of my biggest grievances with Partners in Time as a whole. The babies suck. They're just the normal bros if you gave them garbage stats and a voice like a broken piece of woodshop equipment. That is to say, flat out unfun to play as. I have no idea who the evil bastard responsible for designing that baby's crying sound effect is, but I really hope that someday he can find some time to publicly apologize for the unspeakable horrors he has inflicted unto my home through my Sonos surround sound system.
The thing about Mario bosses specifically is there's no room to make a joke beyond poking fun at the obviously absurd overworld or random blend of situations that happen immediately before or after said boss. For example, the devilish design choice of Toadsworth giving a tutorial option for the 3rd time. They need to drop that, dude. I wish we could make a running gag of the inevitable first few bosses of every Mario and Luigi video we do, but there's no substance because, I mean, what are they? Nothing. Next.
There is a faint possibility that 2,000 years from now archaeologists will find copies of this game, reach this fight, and be led to believe that at one point a significant population of Earth talked like these two. This possibility is so funny that it almost makes up for the fact that this fight is glorified button mashing. You can just spam Bros Flowers and in turn stunlock them with a burn status effect, which is pretty lame and makes my fingers tired. It's not like it's any better if they can get attacks in though, since they have the attack variety of a normal enemy. These complaints are compounded by the fact that you fight them with the babies only. Yeah, the big bros get sucked into a giant robotic nose for some reason. It's not as pointless as the tutorial bosses, but it's just baffling to me why they would bother making a baby-only boss.
It's anyone's right to gripe over the substandard and half-baked basis for an idea that is Shrouzer, but the overall opinion on this boss passes beyond reasonable disappointment into the territory of overreaction. I think I speak for anywhere from a slim to even split of the community when I say Shrouzer wasn't an expected thing to happen. Now, if there was build-up, like our Knight in Shining Armor Titan Joker, who we've now managed to name drop more than likely anything on this channel, I'd be more lenient with the sheer number of people who vehemently despise this thing, but what's the crime beyond being lazy? To me, nothing. Bowser just so happens to pop up at the end of the seemingly last cutscene, and the Elder Princess Shroob's soul enters his body, an ending quite literally pulled out of an ass. Yes, it's repetitive, and I'm not saying it's good, but the overwhelming hate for this fight has no grounds for reason.
I think this fight would be a lot better if Kamek had an extra, like, 200 health or something. As is, Smash Eggs and Cannonballers absolutely trivialize him and make it hard to appreciate the fight's mechanics since he'll only get to attack you like 2 or 3 times. He's not unpleasant by any means, and I love the animation for the fire attack he uses when you knock him off his broom. It's fun while it lasts, but given his only tricks are cloning and setting himself on fire, it's pretty clear that Bowser needs to hire some new talent for bodyguard duty.
If objectivity for Cytonox qualifies as just Alex and I's opinions, the broad majority of Nintendo bosses and even levels are pretty much objective to the T. pretty much meaning not all, with key variants usually having large differences between our individual opinions on them, such as is the case with Commander Stroob and the Strooboid Brad. By the luck of the draw, we both got our favorite bosses of the two, with Commander Stroob overall being more engaging as well as balanced, at least in my playthrough when compared to the Strooboid Brad. His moveset is nothing crazy but compiled with the easy, but for still lack of trying a puzzle, I found Commander Stroob far less redundant.
I remembered this fight being a lot more fun than it was. He's fine, don't get me wrong, but there comes a time when even the most patient man grows tired of jumping over dirt cabbage and whacking piranha vines. I do like that there seems to be a dedicated physics system for the vines though. Every now and then he'll get pummeled into the ground and start trying to suck you in, but the threat level here is negligible so long as you spam the jump button. PD isn't the most interesting boss by any means, but I will give him props for his high dive skills. He sticks a jump that would break most people's necks like wishbones.
I just mentioned redundancy, or rather a lack thereof, with Commander Stroob, but oh man is Mrs. Thwomp redundant with a capital R. I've never been a big fan of bosses who aren't visually appealing, so label me as a 90s comic enthusiast for all I care, but at the very least I need the thing I'm fighting to at least look cool. Mrs. Thwomp is absolutely hideous and I won't deny it. That being said, her fight is sub-substance, although relies on oversaturated mechanics that feature too often in these games to make a boss stand out. Nintendo shot themselves in the foot by making a polygon ball a boss, and as an insult to injury you get to slog through Thwomp Volcano for 2 hours as a reward.
Despite being an early game boss, Swiggler actually has some of the most mechanical depth of the whole cast. He's flanked by two cronies, both of which have pockets full of mushrooms, both good and bad. Your goal is to roofie Swiggler's drink and beat him senseless while he recovers from the side effects of whatever the hell is in those gray mushrooms. If you mess up and put the red mushroom in his drink, God only knows what happened since I never f***ed around to find out. Swiggler's primary modes of attack are shockwaves and poison clouds, but every now and then some Shroob ships will stop by the Vim factory drive-thru to harvest some of his radioactive splooge. This is apparently some powerful stuff, because it takes mere seconds to be converted into military-grade laser blast that gets sent at the bros depending on the ship's positions. I think it's worth mentioning that this is the first of many fights that are caused by the babies making a nuisance of themselves, and I'm very impressed with the big bro's self-control. I don't care if it's my past self. If he can't behave for the 30 goddamn seconds it takes to sneak past a mutant caterpillar with nuclear chum, I'm caving his head in with his own hammer.
Oh, Sunnyside, like a I don't know why he's called that. I'll assume the name's a reference to Sunnyside Up eggs with the Yoshi eggs and whatnot, but in all honesty, my guess is as good as my dog's. I actually figured out the gimmick of this fight by total chance thanks to Nintendo's horrifying product design, specifically the 3DS Circle Pad, whose notorious tendency to wobble on its own proved true, and I, in quotes, accidentally chose to jump on an egg and ended up breaking it, revealing a Yoshi. This should have built up into a move combining Bros attacks with the Yoshis, but after collecting 5, they just roll a ball down a slope and knock Sunnyside over, leaving his yoke open to punishment. I'm not sure why they based this fight around a throwaway bit meant to waste your time in the previous rooms inside you, but even as is, Sunnyside did not fail to deliver.
I'm always a sucker for fights in arenas or coliseums in games. I just find them cool. Jack, as he mentioned in the Commander Stroob segment, disagrees with me here, but I think this fight is pretty solid. He's unique in that he only attacks after a series of votes from the audience, and has a decent variety of moves that gain more nuance as he loses health. His main move is a lollipop chuck, where he yanks one of the presumably infinite candies out of his throat and throws it at lethal velocity, which I would kill to see happen in real life. He also has the crowd shuffle different power-ups around and direct them at a bro of their choice, although they eventually try to throw you off kilter by swapping the bro's colors or having the brat do everything in reverse order. I do wish it was more clear if you were supposed to stick to the color or initial. I just kinda guessed and I think I chose wrong actually. Obviously you can dodge with both bros since these games never really punish you for doing that, but I feel like you lose style points so I tend not to. The Strooboid Brat is a pretty unique fight even if it drags on a little longer than it has to.
Looks can be deceiving. I really expected to dislike the Elder Strooboid after seeing a little cutout square of him in Prosafia Gaming's thumbnail, but to my surprise this was unquestionably one of the best bosses this game has to offer. In Mario RPGs, there's generally a feudal hierarchy of bosses spanning from tutorial to mini-bosses to story bosses and lastly, final bosses. Relative to your average story boss, the Elder Shroobvoid is much closer to that tier of essentially boss nobility, notably through multi-phase attacks that mix and match uncommon mechanics previously found in other bosses like the force field attack. With proper damage and a couple nutty copy flowers, the bomb in Phase 2 should be a minimal issue, but instead of being an unbeatable rig like in the Koopalings from the previous game, you can knock the ball into the UFO to reset the timer anyways. I'm not much of an advocate for bosses with a ton going on, but in this case, stirring up near a dozen mechanics came out surprisingly well in the Elder Shroobvoid.
This was probably the best use of the whole baby mechanic, since it's always neat having a showdown with someone who fights the same way as you. Bowser fights in a typical Bowser-y fashion, but as usual an extra set of hands goes a long way towards making Bowser more formidable. Baby Bowser can whack Big Bowser's shell around, demonstrating pretty solid motor skills for someone who's supposed to be a baby. He seems more like a 10-year-old or something though, to be honest. Bowser himself will blow flames as usual, but tries juking you out sometimes, which adds some much needed variety to this common move. Every now and then Bowser gets sent flying away in his shell and you get to beat up Baby Bowser, which strikes me as kind of unfair. 4 dudes deciding to gang up on a baby and beat the snot out of him goes about how you'd expect, and Baby Bowser proves to be pretty easy to handle on his own. This fight is one of the lucky few to have its own unique theme, so it stands out all the more for it. I also dig the setting of the bottom of Thwomp Volcano, which is actually my favorite area in the game. This fight is one of the more dynamic ones for sure, so it's no surprise it's as well liked as it is.
This fight was pretty abrupt with it actually happening, and while I heavily dislike Joke's End and partially like Bowser's Castle on a good day, a vast and expansive endgame building into the final boss would have been much more congruent over a rushed finale. And as really the penultimate boss, she has none of the flair you'd come to expect of a character of such story prominence. Take Bowletta. Even though it was easy, it was overall very epic and delivered with intensity. If her mechanical body had a more fleshed out moveset, it would have been a bit more of an Arnold vs. Ferrigno situation with her and the Elder Princess Shrew, but at best this is round 11 of Wilder vs. Fury 3, with the Elder blowing her younger sibling out of the water. Like most, the bulk of Princess Shrew is monotonous, specifically how little time you get to attack her and how long it takes to get back to that point. At maximum, I was able to pull off 3 and on rare occasion 4 moves before her mechanical body reformed, with minimum 2 attacks from her. Attack being a major understatement, as her moveset is quite varied in base form and she can have chains lasting anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds. I wish there was something more to this. Maybe the mechanical robot could have been a second phase or had an actual role in the fight, but with neat callbacks to bosses of the past like Hackletta's eye attack along with a great theme as well, Princess Shrew was most definitely an A-grade boss.
This is incontestably the best boss in the game. The attacks are leagues beyond any others, and it has the best song of the whole soundtrack going for it as well. Everyone always talks about In the Finale and Adventure's End being the best final boss themes in this series, and while I can't disagree, I still think this one is criminally underrated. The first phase is a fun prelude to the main course, where Peach will send stars your way that you can use to knock out Shroob ships and limit what moves she'll throw at you. I actually like this phase more than the final one personally, since I feel like there's more variation to the moves you gotta avoid. She usually goes down before you can get a sample of every move, which is too bad, but I guess they had to make sure the fight didn't drag in conjunction with the second phase, where she becomes a ginormous tentacle monster. You can destroy her arms to lower her attack pool, her legs to reach her crown, and her crown to do actual damage. That sounds like an obnoxiously tall order until you realize that the mix flower makes a joke out of her limbs. Once her guard is down, you can lead the usual copy flower Congo line on top of her head until she either dies or heals her body back. All in all, Elder Princess Shroob is quintessential final boss material and undoubtedly the best boss in the game.
Thank you so much for watching. Partners in Time is about level, but a bit clear of Superstar Saga for me, and while I see it compared to Dark Souls 2 a lot, it's no DS2. The introduction of a 4-player system was a shock that settled with time, but even in the final boss fight felt formidable and sometimes even verging on annoying, specifically a constant issue of Baby Luigi's hits not registering. I'm not sure where PIT will end up on my personal list once we've completely finished ranking this series, but for the time being it was a more complete game than the 2002 SS, but not as well done as the 2018 remaster. Either way, I thoroughly enjoyed this game and recommend it to anyone with the means to get it. Once again, thank you for watching, remember to like and subscribe if you haven't, and with that said, deuces.